Hey there, how are you doing? Hey, Pastor Jason here. I just wanted to update you as to the progress of this massive project that I've undertaken. I am about 20% of the way through reading every verse in the Bible that has to do with fear in its context, and doing a little bit of study of the verse to make sure I understand it completely. And my goal here is to build an exhaustive biblical theology on fear. So again, I'm about 20% of the way through that. There's over 500 references in the Bible that talk about fear, and I am about to cross the 100 mark of verses that I have studied. Where does that put me in the Bible? I'm actually just finishing Deuteronomy, and so just about done with the Torah. So, what have I learned so far? I gave you guys a definition last week when I did one of these journals where I said I think that fear in the Bible is an overwhelming psychological impulse to change one's behavior or circumstances based on an outside person or event. And I think that definition still holds water. I'm very happy with that definition. As I've been looking through the verses that I have studied so far, really all of the verses fall into one of two buckets. In the first bucket is when fear is in reference to God. Either He is the object of our fear or He is the source of our fear. And those verses are rather complex. There's a whole lot of dissecting that can happen in that bucket. And I am only about 20% of the way through the Bible in this project, and so I am not yet ready to report to you all that those verses mean. The other bucket is when people or world events are the object or source of our fear. Those are much simpler. In the roughly 100 verses that I've read so far, and nearly done with the Pentateuch, all of those verses, it's about 40 of them, all of those verses say the same thing. Don't do that. There has not yet been one example where a character in the Bible, in the story, was afraid of another person or of a world event, and God said, "Good job. That's right. I want you to be afraid of that." Not a single one. Every single time somebody is afraid of a person or a world event, that is either overtly condemned by the narrative of the story, directly opposed by a prophetic message from the Lord, or in the context it is presented in such a way that it's obvious that that was not the right thing to do. Or the fear that they were, the thing that they were afraid of was immaterial. It never happened. A couple of quick examples just off the top of my head. Jacob is terrified of Esau coming back from his time earning his flocks and herds and wives. He leaves his uncle's family territory and comes back home, and he is utterly beside himself with terror that Esau is going to kill him. And there is reason for that. Jacob was a schmuck, and he angered his brother, and his brother's not known for being a gentle person. And so Jacob is terrified. And when the story plays out, Esau welcomes him with open arms and forgives him everything. And it's this beautiful reunion story between the brothers. Another example that pops up at the top of my head is in Numbers, when the children of Israel finally make it to the threshold of Canaan, and they're on the cusp of the promised land, and they send out the spies to go see what they're about to come up against. And the spies come back, and 8 of them are terrified of the inhabitants of the land. And they share their fear and their terror with their fellow Israelites, and the fear wins the day over the testimony of the two faithful spies who say, no, God is with us, let's go conquer. And God is so angry that they have given into fear that he threatens to just destroy them all. And his relenting of that threat of wrath turns into 40 years of wandering in the wilderness. All of the stories where people are afraid of a human or a world event are like that. So far, almost done with the law, there is no example where fear of a person or a world event was a good thing. So that just has got me thinking. Remember, I started this whole project because a couple of people that I love, I think, are living in fear. And one of those people called me and said, I think you quoted me. I did, and I quoted other people who also said the same thing. So I'm not just picking on one group of people. There are a number of folks that I love dearly who are living in fear. And I started this project because I want to know what to do with fear. And I want to know specifically, how does that impact wisdom? How do wisdom and fear interact with each other in Scripture? So I don't know if you've ever done this. If you're reading a story and the plot is so thick that you have to know how it ends, and so you cheat and you flip to the back couple of pages and at least see if your character's alive, right? I've done that a number of times. It's not the best way to read a story, but at least you know your guy's going to make it. And so I kind of cheated. I went to my Bible software and I found all of the times when fear and wisdom show up in the same verse. Or I can do this thing called a fuzzy search, which is awesome, where I look at any time that fear and wisdom show up near each other. They don't even have to be in the same verse. And I was astounded at how few intersections there are of fear and wisdom. They're all in the Psalms or the Proverbs. And fear and wisdom intersect only 4 times, which that's a tiny sample. Remember, we're looking at over 500 verses. Fear and wisdom intersect only 4 times. 3 of the 4 times, it says the same thing. Scripture is repeating itself 3 times. It says in 3 different places that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Remember, fear is the overwhelming psychological impulse to change. When that is directed at God, and God has the power to overcome your desires and make you change, that's wisdom. There is no example of wisdom pointing at the fear of people or world events, which means that Scripture is telling us that it is not wise to give people or world events the power to force you to change. That's paradigm shifting for me. And so here's what I think. This is a hypothesis. Last time I ended with a definition, and I really like the definition. Here in the last minute of this video, I'm going to end with a hypothesis. Here's my hypothesis. I think that fear and wisdom cannot intersect unless the object of your fear is God, because fear compels you to do something. You do not have the freedom to weigh your options and use wisdom to make a decision if fear is in the mix. Fear forces its hand, and it does not allow you to think about and weigh and be wise about your choice. Where there is fear, there cannot be wisdom unless the fear is the fear of God. That's my hypothesis. Wisdom might eventually make you do the same thing that fear makes you do, but it's only wisdom if you were able to make a decision, not if you were driven to your action. So that's my hypothesis. Chew on that a little bit, and I will come back to you hopefully in the next couple of days with an update. I hope this is helpful to you. God bless you. I love you.